We are discussing physics of the nucleus. Under nuclear physics, now we shall try to understand in detail about the main processes in which one of them is nuclear fission. In 1939, two scientists, namely Hahn and Strassman, discovered that bombardment of uranium by neutrons produces elements that belong to the middle portion of the periodic table. A very large amount of binding energy is released in the fission of a nucleus with a large atomic number into two nuclei of intermediate atomic number because of the reduction in the Coulomb energy. So we can schematically represent in a mathematical form something like this: the amount of heat released because of the two nuclei. That means if you take uranium 235, its mass, if it is bombarded with a neutron, this is coming out, that energy is coming out. So the total energy, if you take, that is the sum of these two. So when you take the sum of these two and total mass of the nucleus is found to be less than that, that means there is a mass defect in this, which is coming to around 170 million electron volts. That means the total energy that is released, including beta decays and gamma decays, is found to be very close to approximately 200 million electron volts per fission, which is carried away largely by the two fission fragments along with 2 or 3 neutrons. Now these neutrons can be used to induce other uranium nucleus to fission out, and that leads to something what is known as chain reaction. Now with the liquid drop model, we can represent the steps involved in the fission process in the liquid drop model like this. That means when neutrons are bombarded to uranium, then that is producing elements belonging to the middle portion of the periodic table. So large amount of binding energy is found to be released in the fission of the nucleus with large atomic numbers splitting into two nuclei with intermediate atomic numbers because of the reduction in the Coulomb energy. Coulomb energy is represented earlier like this. So the total energy that is released, including the beta decays and gamma decays, is found to be close to 200 million electron volts per fission. That is carried away by largely two fission fragments along with 2 to 3 neutrons. Again, these 3 or 2 neutrons further can be used to induce other uranium nuclei to fission again. And that process continues, and that leads to what is known as chain reaction. It can be represented like this. Now we can find out from this change in the surface energy. How? Let us see. So when you consider a symmetric decay into two equal fragments, in the liquid drop model, the volume energy remains unchanged. So by neglecting the pairing energy, Coulomb energy, changing into forms something like this, splitting into two parts with the release of energy. Now the resulting is nothing but change of surface energy, which can be represented like this. These points we have already discussed: Coulomb energy, pairing energy, volume energy, etc. we have seen in the last session. So approximately this much energy is being released. Now if you plot this in the form of a diagram or a graph for a fissionable nucleus, approximately energy more than 6 million electron volts is required to overcome the fission barrier. So diagrammatically this can be explained as shown here. This is the energy diagram of a fissionable nucleus. The energy 6 million electron volts, more than 6 million electron volts is required to overcome the fission barrier. So in induced fission reaction, a nucleus captures a low energy neutron. An incident particle enters the nucleus and transfers its energy to the nucleus, exciting it into a collective state where the energy is shared. Now, the compound nucleus does not remember the way it was formed. So, therefore, its decay should be independent of the way it was produced. Because the binding energy of the last neutron in a high atomic number nucleus is about 6 million electron volts, the capturing nucleus receives enough energy to take it over to the top of the fission barrier, and the nucleus splits into two parts. Now, the excitation energy changes to collective vibrations in the nucleus, which become sufficiently elongated to fission. The fission fragments are not usually symmetrical, with one of the fragments having number of protons and number of neutron values near the magic numbers 50 and 82, such that the mass number is 132 should be prominent on the final mass yield. Both the fragments have the same Z/N ratio, that is atomic number to number of neutron values. Because the fissioning nucleus, they have the same Z/N ratio. So these Z/N ratios are smaller than those of stable nuclei with these mass values. Therefore, they undergo succession of beta decays to bring them to stability curve. The fragments are very neutron rich. Therefore, that will prompt the neutron emission in a favorable condition. A single fission may yield 2 to 3 neutrons. Some reactions also have delayed neutron emissions in which a daughter nucleus is insufficiently excited, that is above the neutron separation energy, to allow it to emit a neutron, leaving a stable nucleus. For that, just take a typical fission event, for example. Here, uranium-235 is bombarded with a neutron. Now, that makes it to this uranium-236 convert into, split out into strontium and xenon. Again, the strontium and xenon takes 2 more neutrons through beta decay. Again, it splits into yet another nuclei and another stable nuclei. So, like that, this reaction goes on. In every fission reaction, you get few more neutrons being released. They further go and hit the nucleus, and again that nucleus split into further until the nucleus goes on until the nucleus becomes stable. So, the total energy release of uranium, for example, is roughly estimated like this. The kinetic energy of the fission products, approximately 167 million electron volts. Kinetic energy of prompt neutrons, 5 million electron volts. Energy of the instantaneous gamma radiations, 6 electron volts. Beta particle energy including neutrinos, 20 million electron volts. Secondary gamma radiations, 6 electron volts. So the total, if you calculate, it comes to around 204 million electron volts. That means uranium-238 requires more energy to fission than uranium-235 because of the energetics of the pairing term. So therefore, it will fission only with a fast neutron. So because of that, odd nuclei, for example, if you take, can undergo fission with thermal neutrons, whereas even nuclei have a high fission threshold. But remember here that the fission fragments of all atoms in the reactor are not the same. Some atoms disintegrate with different energies and products. Now, with this background, let us look at the other type of nuclear reaction, what is known as nuclear fusion. As we come across earlier, nuclear fusion is the process in which two lighter nuclei, that is where mass number is less than 20, two lighter nuclei combine to form a heavier nucleus. The mass of the final nucleus is less than the combined rest masses of the original nucleus. Therefore, there is always a release of energy. For example, you take the fusion reaction that takes place in the sun. Fusion reaction that takes place in the sun, carefully observe. Hydrogen 1,1 get added to get hydrogen 1,2 with the release of a positron, a neutrino with a energy of 0.42 MeV. Now again, hydrogen 1,1 nuclei react with 1H2 to form He23, unstable nucleus of helium with a gamma radiation emission and 5.49 million electron volts. And with this He23, helium-23, H11 again reacts to form a stable He24 with the release of positron and gamma. Now two such nuclei for this helium-24, you can again have another reaction, or alternatively you can have two helium-23 getting combined to form a stable helium-24 nucleus with the release of two hydrogen 1,1s with a release of 12.86 million electron volts. This is a continuous process. So this is an example of fusion reaction that is taking place in the sun. So these are the basic reactions in the proton-proton cycle. For the basic cycle of energy generation in the sun, where about 25 million electron volts of energy is released. About 2% of energy is carried away by neutrinos, which is not accounted for. So therefore, when the density of helium becomes high, carbon is formed. So helium, by combining, forming beryllium, and from beryllium again reacting with helium, forming carbon. So when enough carbon is produced, carbon cycle is initiated. How the carbon cycle looks like? So when you look at carbon cycle, H11 combines with carbon to get nitrogen, and nitrogen splits into carbon-13 with a positron and a gamma radiation. Now with this carbon-13, when hydrogen get reacted, again nitrogen is formed, N14. For this, when nitrogen reacts with hydrogen, it gives oxygen. And again it splits into nitrogen and positron and gamma. Now this nitrogen, N15, to get a stable nucleus, reacts with hydrogen to form carbon-12 and helium. Both are stable. This is how carbon cycle can be understood. Now one thing we have to remember is, carbon is not consumed but participates only as a catalyst. So the quantity of carbon is negligible in the sun in comparison with heavier stars. So at high temperatures, we get oxygen 16, neon 20, magnesium 24, and finally we'll get iron 56, mass numbers. So elements heavier than iron are not formed by fusion, because at mass number 60, the binding energy per nucleon maximizes. So nuclei, if you take up to bismuth 209, are formed by neutron capture and beta decay. When the stars run out of hydrogen, they collapse under gravitational force and convert into supernova, where heavier elements are produced. That means when stars run out of hydrogen, they collapse under gravitational force and convert to supernova, where heavier elements are produced. Advantage of fusion reaction is that the fuel is very inexpensive and a few radioactive byproducts are also produced. The proton-proton interactions of the sun require too high pressures and densities for a fusion reactor. So therefore, if we consider the concept of deuterium and tritium reactions like this, two deuteriums fuse together to form helium-3, which is unstable, with the evolution of a neutron and 3.2 million electron volts. Or two deuterium fuse to get hydrogen-3 and hydrogen. Now these two combine to form stable helium nucleus. So as told, the proton-proton interactions of the sun require too high pressures and densities for a fusion reactor. So instead of that, we can use this deuterium-tritium reactions. But the main problem is that the Coulomb repulsion between two charged nuclei must be overcome before they fuse. So therefore, they need enough kinetic energy to overcome this barrier. This can be achieved by heating them to very high temperatures, almost to the order of 10 power 8 Kelvin. Because particles have Boltzmann distribution, the average energy for a given temperature can be lower because the tail of the distribution will have higher energy. The temperature at which the power generation exceeds the loss rate is what is called the critical ignition temperature. So the critical ignition temperature, for example, deuterium-deuterium reaction, if you take, it is 4 into 10 power 3 Kelvin, corresponding to almost 35 kiloelectron volts. Whereas for deuterium-tritium reaction, the critical ignition temperature is 4.5 into 10 power 7 Kelvin. That corresponds to almost 4 kiloelectron volts. That means there is energy loss due to Bremsstrahlung radiation, that is breaking radiation, as a result of electron-ion collision in the plasma. There are two other critical parameters that can be included here. One is called ion density, the other is called confinement time. That is the time for which the ions are at a greater temperature than the ignition temperature.